Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new theory and speculation video. Today, I want to talk about Decarabian and the secrets he may have held. While there isn't too much lore on this fallen god, I do want to theorize about his potential connections to death. Now, this video does contain spoilers for the quest listed on screen now, so if you haven't done those, you have been warned. With all that said though, let's get right into the video. As always, before we get into the theories, I want to go over what we know about Decarabian and his history. Decarabian was a god who ruled Old Mondstadt over 2,600 years ago, where he was known as the God of Storms and Lord of the Tower. At his nation's peak, his reach encompassed the Bright Crown Mountains and Windwale Highlands of Mondstadt. His reach stretched as far south as the teleport waypoint between Dawn Winery and Liyue, but the upper boundaries aren't fully clear. Gates within the ruins of Old Mondstadt suggest that his rule did stretch more to the north, but we'll have to wait for a Mondstadt expansion to see the extent of that rule. Either way, these areas were likely closed off after Decarabian started his war with Andrias. He soon created a storm barrier around the city, which allowed no one to get in or out. The Age of Kings would now begin, with Decarabian and Andrias being together known as the Kings of Ice and Frost. The war between the two gods lasted at least 400 years, though most of it was a stalemate. Andrias could not land a scratch against the storm barrier, and Decarabian seemingly had no need to fight back. As for why the storm barrier was put up, Andrias had turned the land now known as Mondstadt into a giant frozen wasteland. Decarabian wanted his subjects to have a city free from the bitter cold. However, his people saw him as a cruel and selfish leader who locked them in. While he wanted to be a good ruler, his desire for control led him to micromanage the city to an extreme level. Everyone's living quarters were determined for them, and certain chords and tunes were banned for the fear of resistance. While Decarabian was not intentionally malicious in his actions, he was disconnected from his people and didn't understand he was causing them pain. Even though he claimed to love them, he could not fully understand their emotions. At some point, he even took on a human lover by the name of Amos. However, she soon realized that he did not love her in the same way that she loved him. Additionally, Decarabian believed that his people were bound to him out of adoration and respect for the God King. Instead, it was the harsh winds within Old Mondstadt that forced them to bow. Eventually, the frustration of the people reached an all-time high, and seeds of resistance would be planted against Decarabian. To avoid the watchful gaze of the God King, the freedom fighters used the original Windbloom as a symbol of solidarity. It didn't take long for the seeds of resistance planted by these freedom fighters to bloom into a full-scale rebellion. A group of rebels was determined to challenge Decarabian and liberate the people of Old Mondstadt from his rule. This group included the Nameless Bard, a nameless wind spirit, Decarabian's former lover Amos, a certain red-haired warrior, Gunhildr, and many others who were tired of living in fear. The rebels were successful in their plans, and Decarabian would be killed. However, both the Nameless Bard and Amos would be killed in the conflict as well. Around the same time, Andrias realized that life in Mondstadt could not flourish due to his blizzards, and that he would not be a good ruler for humanity. As such, he gave up his physical form and sent his power into the land to protect it. Soon after Decarabian fell, prayers from Gunhildr and her clan would allow the Nameless Wind Spirit to ascend as the first animal archon, Barbatos. He would take the form of the Nameless Bard in his honor, while also using a bow in honor of Amos. After this, he would terraform Mondstadt and build a new city for his people on an island in Cider Lake. Decarabian's Mondstadt would then be abandoned, but relics of the fallen God King still remain in the ruins. An expansion to Mondstadt could also introduce other areas that belong to Decarabian, which could give us a lot more lore on him. We could learn more about what he was like and what he did besides ruling Old Mondstadt. Instead of focusing on future content though, let's turn back to the currently explorable ruins and the secrets they hold. Within the ruins, you can find this symbol that highly resembles the symbol found all over Klee's design. So, what if Decarabian has ties to Alice or the Hexenzirkel? Perhaps the Hexenzirkel initially followed Decarabian, which could explain why they wanted to challenge Barbatos in the past. In the Ars Goetia, the demon Decarabia could change into all birds and knew the virtues of all herbs and precious stones. Birds are seen quite a few times in the Hexenzirkel cutscene, but that could just be Mondstadt symbolism. However, the second part is interesting, as the Hexenzirkel members have knowledge of various different fields. Alice has been described as near omnipotent, which reminds me of Decarabian's watchful gaze. Then again, in the Teyvat travel guide, Alice described Decarabian as a cruel god and blew up part of his ruins. Perhaps Barbatos explained his side of the story to the Hexenzirkel in the past, and how Decarabian essentially removed freedom from his people. The Hexenzirkel could have changed their minds, no longer following Decarabian. Moving on though, I believe Decarabian may also have some relation to death. In the past, I've theorized that Istaroth, the Shade of Time, may have instances of herself that hold some of her power. Perhaps the Shade of Death has their own instances too, with Decarabian being one of them. His misunderstanding of human emotions could then be tied to his domain over death. Instead of focusing on protecting the lives of his people, he may be focused on protecting their souls. The storm barrier would have been used to make sure their souls didn't get lost in the blizzards, and the meticulous planning of the city may have somehow made it easier for souls to pass on. As such, his love would come from a place of protecting the souls of his people, not their bodies. Now, below the central tower in Old Mondstadt, there is a mysterious hole where a wind current flows. If you fall into this hole, you'll be considered out of bounds and teleported back up, but you'll also get a special message. Paimon will say, "Watch out, don't go near there." Now, in the entirety of the game, this message is only found in two other places, Duat Hall in Sumeru, and the other side of the Book of Revealing in Fontaine. For the sake of this video, I'm only going to focus on Duat Hall and King Deshret. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the Duat is the realm of the dead. Therefore, in Genshin, we can assume this is Deshret's version of the underworld. As such, the mysterious hole in Decarabian's Mondstadt could lead to a very similar place. Like Deshret, Decarabian may have been able to ferry souls to the afterlife. Duat Hall could have been the entrance in Sumeru, while this hole would be the entrance in Decarabian's Mondstadt. Additionally, Deshret and Decarabian share a few other similarities. Upon first reaching their respective capitals, we encounter some sort of environmental effect which is later removed. Around Old Mondstadt, we find the storm barrier, and above King Deshret's mausoleum, we see a massive sandstorm. Both gods also have some association with vision. Decarabian was described as having a watchful gaze, while Deshret's main symbol was the eye. We also have yet to see either of them in a human form. So then, like Deshret, could Decarabian still be alive? I think it's possible, but less likely than Deshret. Deshret had the golden slumber and separated his mind from his body, which required a lot of work to achieve. Decarabian likely didn't have an equivalent to this, but we don't know just yet. Alternatively, at the moment of his defeat, he could have slipped into the hole beneath his tower, sending him to the realm of the dead. Due to the recent conflict, he may have been weakened and remains unable to travel back to the living worlds. As for his duty of ferrying souls to the afterlife, this would have been passed to Venti. In his story quest, we see that he can recover lost souls and help them move on. Perhaps the prayers that allowed him to become an Archon also caused some of Decarabian's powers and duties to be transferred to him. Thus, Decarabian could still be alive, trapped below his fallen nation. No matter if he's dead or alive, Decarabian could still influence the story in a few different ways. When we inevitably get a Mondstadt expansion to the north, the lore given to us there about Decarabian could tell us about his secrets and help us connect bits of lore that were tricky in the past. This could even include the Dandelion Sea, a mythical place talked about in Mondstadt. I mentioned the ancient Egyptian afterlife earlier, and within that afterlife, there was a place known as the Field of Reeds. Perhaps the Dandelion Sea is Mondstadt's equivalent to the Field of Reeds, a place where souls go after death. In the future, we could learn more about Decarabian and the Dandelion Sea from Venti as well, though I don't know if we'll be able to travel there. Even if we do get there, it could be hard for us to leave. We could get help from Venti and his power, similar to how Zhongli rescued Zhao during the Perilous Trail interlude quest. Anyways, that's pretty much it for my thoughts on Decarabian and the secrets he holds. I really hope we get a Mondstadt expansion soon so we can learn more about him and what his deal is. In the meantime, if you want more information on the topics I mentioned in this video, I recommend my videos on King Deshret, Istaroth, and the 7 Wonders of Mondstadt. I would love to hear what ideas you all have for Decarabian in the comments below as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Sources and further readings are also in the description if you want to check them out. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you all in the next video.